Hello, BookTube. I have a large book haul today. For Christmas, my mother bought me a gift card from Powell's, a great bookstore in Portland, Oregon. I was going to hold off on using this gift card until Powell's had a sale on. Over the last year, Powell's has had at least one, sometimes two sales a month, and I have indulged myself quite liberally with these sales. The first sale of 2026 was 10% off of used books, and I really indulged myself with this sale, not only using up that gift card, but also quite a bit of my own money as well. So let's get going because there are 16 books to talk about. Starting with in alphabetical order because these books came in yesterday and I've already logged them into my library catalog. And so I've already organized them alphabetically so that I can put them on the fiction, poetry, and drama shelves when the time comes to put them on the shelves before I do my February reading plan. So first up is The Harmony Silk Factory by Tash. Joseph Conrad, Somerset Maugham, and Anthony Burgess have shaped our perceptions of Malaysia. Now, with The Harmony Silk Factory, we have an authentic Malaysian voice that remaps this literary landscape. Through his examination of a compelling, mysterious, and larger-than-life character, Tash gives us an exquisitely written look into another culture at a moment of crisis. So I picked this book up because I've been wanting to try something by Tash since I saw that he was longlisted for this year's Booker Prize for the South. I will quite probably pick up the South once it is released in trade paperback, which is, I think, at the beginning of May. But I wanted to try something else by him first, and so I went with The Harmony Silk Factory. Next is Your Utopia by Bora Chung, translated from the Korean by Anton. From the author and translator of Cursed Bunny, a finalist for the National Book Award and shortlisted for the Booker International Prize, these chilling news stories will crawl deep under your skin and change the way you see the most mundane objects in everyday interactions. The Inheritance of Loss by Kiran Desai. In a crumbling, isolated house at the foot of Mount Kanchenjunga in the Himalayas lives an embittered judge who wants only to retire in peace. When his orphan granddaughter, Sai, arrives on his doorstep, the judge's cook watches over her distractedly, for his thoughts are often on his son, Biju, who is hopscotching from one gritty New York restaurant to another. Kiran Desai's brilliant novel, published to huge acclaim, is a story of joy and despair. Her characters face numerous choices that majestically illuminate the consequences of colonialism as it collides with the modern world. The Conservationist by Nadine Gordimer. Marrying is rich. He has all the privileges and possessions that South Africa has to offer. But his possessions refuse to remain objects. His wife, son, and mistress leave him. His foremen and workers become increasingly indifferent to his stewardship. Even the land rises up as drought, then flood, destroy his farm. I am on a Nadine Gordimer kick because the next book I have is the reacquisition of Jump and Other Stories. In 16 new stories ranging from the dynamics of family life to the worldwide confusion of human values, Nadine Gordimer gives us access to many lives in places as far apart as suburban London, Mozambique, a mythical island, and South Africa. In Summer Born to Sweet Delight, a girl's innocent love for an enigmatic foreign lodger in her parents' home leads her to involve others in a tragedy of international terrorism. The moment before the gun went off reveals the strange mystery behind an accident in which a white farmer has killed a black boy. Once upon a time, it's a horrifying fairy tale about a child raised in a society founded on fear. Passionate, incisive, and with strong moral resonance, Gordimer's stories offer a portrait of life as it is lived now, at the end of our century. So I had an edition of Jump and Other Stories about 20 or so years ago, and I'm really happy to have it back in my collection. Next up is Gravel Heart by Abdulrazak Gurnah. For 7-year-old Salim, the pillars upholding his small universe, his indifferent father, his adored uncle, his treasured books, the daily routines of government school and Quran lessons, seem unshakable. But it is the 1970s, and the winds of change are blowing through Zanzibar. Suddenly, Salim's father is gone, and the island convulses with violence and corruption in the wake of a revolution. It will only be years later, making his way through an alien and hostile London, that Salim will begin to understand the shame and exploitation festering at the heart of his family's history. So I've been wanting to try something by Abdulrazak Gurnah for a few years now, ever since he won the Nobel Prize in Literature. The Vegetarian by Kang, translated from the Korean by where's the translator? Okay, translated from the Korean by Deborah Smith. Before the nightmares began, Young-hee and her husband lived an ordinary, controlled life. But the dream's invasive images of blood and brutality torture her, driving Young-hee to purge her mind and renounce eating meat altogether. It's a small act of independence, but it interrupts her marriage and sets into motion an increasingly grotesque chain of events at home, as her husband, her brother-in-law, and her sister each fight to reassert their control. Young-hee obsessively defends the choice that's become sacred to her. Soon their attempts turn desperate, subjecting first her mind and then her body to ever more intrusive and perverse violations, sending Young-hee spiraling into a dangerous, bizarre estrangement, not only from those closest to her, but also from herself. Celebrated by critics around the world, The Vegetarian is a darkly allegorical Kafkaesque tale of power, obsession, and one woman's struggle to break free from the violence both outside and within her. So I've been wanting to try something by Kang for quite a while, and now's the time to do so. Breasts and Eggs by Mieko Kawakami, translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett and David Boyd. On a sweltering summer day, Makiko travels from Osaka to Tokyo, where her sister Natsuko lives. She is in the company of her daughter, Midoriko, who has lately grown silent, finding herself unable to voice the vague yet overwhelming pressures associated with adolescence. The story of these three women, reunited in a working-class neighborhood of Tokyo, is told through the gaze of Natsuko, 30 years old, an aspiring writer, haunted by hardships endured in her youth. Over the course of their few days together in the capital, Midoriko's silence will prove a catalyst for each woman to confront her fears and family secrets. On yet another blistering summer's day 8 years later, Natsuko, during a journey back to her native city, struggles with her own indeterminate identity as she confronts anxieties about growing old, alone, and childless. One of Japan's most important and best-selling writers, Mieko Kawakami, mixes stylistic inventiveness, wry humor, and riveting emotional depth to tell a story of contemporary womanhood in Japan. Breasts and Eggs recounts the intimate journeys of three women on the path to finding peace and futures they can call their own. I've been wanting to try something by Mieko Kawakami for quite a while as well. Next is 100 Years of Solitude by Gabriel Garcia Marquez, translated from the Spanish by Gregory Rabassa. Probably Garcia Marquez's finest and most famous work, 100 Years of Solitude, tells the story of the rise and fall, birth and death of the mythical town of Macondo through the history of the Buendia family. Inventive, amusing, magnetic, sad, alive with unforgettable men and women, and with a truth and understanding that strike the soul, 100 Years of Solitude is a masterpiece of the art of fiction. I have unfinished business with this novel. Next is Collected Stories by Frank O'Connor. Okay, so there is no blurb outside of blurbs. So I will go with the Chicago Sunday Times. In his 63 years, Frank O'Connor produced an impressive amount of work, but it's his short stories that guarantee his immortality. They are encapsulated universes. While most modern stories focus on a single moment, Frank O'Connors generally sum up the patterns of whole lives. Each story is, in its own way, shattering. From Ann Tyler, writing for the Chicago Sunday Times. Goodbye Columbus by Philip Roth. And in case anybody was wanting to know, I picked up the Frank O'Connor collection because Steve Donaghy recommended it in a recent Irish literature starter kit. Philip Roth's award-winning first book instantly established its author's reputation as a writer of explosive wit, merciless insight, and a fierce compassion for even the most self-deluding of his characters. Goodbye Columbus is the story of Neil Klukman and pretty-spirited Brenda Potemkin, he of poor Newark, she of suburban Short Hills, who meet one summer break and dive into an affair that is as much about social class and suspicion as it is about love. The novella is accompanied by 5 short stories that range in tone from the iconoclastic to the astonishingly tender, and that illuminate the subterranean conflict between parents and children and friends and neighbors in the American Jewish diaspora. So, I have never read Philip Roth, and I think it's time that I do so. Next is The God of Small Things by Arundhati Roy. And there's no synopsis. So I will go with a blurb from the New York Times Book Review. The quality of Miss Roy's narration is so extraordinary, at once so morally strenuous and so imaginatively supple, that the reader remains enthralled all the way through. Next is the Patrick Melrose novels by Edward St. Aubyn. Again, there is no synopsis at the back of the book, so I will pick something from... Let's go again with the New York Times Book Review. The Melrose novels are a masterwork for the 21st century, written by one of the great prose stylists in England. This is from Alice Sweet. No, actually that's from Alice Sebold, who was not writing for the New York Times Book Review because their blurb is tantalizing a memorable tour de force. Anyway, I've been wanting to try something by Edward St. Aubyn for a little bit, so decided to pick this up while waiting for his more recent Parallel Lines or Parallel Lives to come out in trade paperback. Even though I do prefer the hardcovers cover more than the trade paperbacks is going to look like, but I have a preference for trade paperbacks when it comes to fiction poetry, and drama. So next is a second reacquisition. This is Raise the Red Lantern by Tong, translated from the Chinese by Michael S. Duke. The brutal realities of the dark places Su Tong depicts in this collection of novellas set in 1930s provincial China, worlds of prostitution, poverty, and drug addiction, belie his prose of stunning and simple beauty. The title novella tells the story of Lotus, a young woman whose father's suicide forces her to become the concubine of a wealthy merchant. Crushed by loneliness, despair, and cruel treatment, Lotus finds in insanity both weapon and refuge. 1934 Escapes is an account of a family's struggles during one momentous year. Plagued by disease, death, and the shady promise of life in a larger town, the family slowly disintegrates. Finally, Opium Family details the last years of a landowning clan whose demise is brought about by corruption, lust, and treachery, fruits of the insidious crop they harvest. So I had this book about 20 years ago, and I picked it up because Raise the Red Lantern is the basis for the film adaptation Raise the Red Lantern, starring Gong Li. And I love that movie, even though it has been a very, very long time since I've seen it. But I really wanted to re-add this to my collection, and I jumped at the chance to do so with this book haul. Returning to Malaysian literature and Booker Prize nominated or shortlisted novels is The Garden of Evening Mists by Twan. Malaya, 1951. Yun Ling Teo, the scarred lone survivor of a brutal Japanese wartime camp, seeks solace among the jungle-fringed tea plantations of Cameron Highlands. There she discovers Ujiri, the only Japanese garden in Malaya, and its owner and creator, the enigmatic Aritomo, exiled former gardener of the Emperor of Japan. Despite her hatred of the Japanese, young Ling seeks to engage Aritomo to create a garden in memory of her sister who died in the camp. Aritomo refuses but agrees to accept young Ling as his apprentice until the monsoon comes. Then she can design a garden for herself. As the months pass, young Ling finds herself intimately drawn to the gardener and his art, while all around them a communist guerrilla war rages. But the Garden of Evening Mists remains a place of mystery. Who is Aritomo, and how did he come to leave Japan? And is the real story of how Yun Ling managed to survive the war perhaps the darkest secret of all? So, very interested to read this. I've been wanting to read something by Twan for quite a while, and might also pick up his more recent novel, The House of Doors, sometime soon as well. And finally, the last book in this book haul is The Safekeep by Yael van der Wooden. It is 15 years after the Second World War, and Isabel has built herself a solitary life of discipline and strict routine in her late mother's country home, with not a fork or a word out of place. But all is upended when her brother Louis delivers his graceless new girlfriend Eva at Isabel's doorstep as a guest there to stay for the season. In the sweltering heat of summer, Isabel's desperate need for control reaches a boiling point, and what happens between the two women leads to a revelation that threatens all she has ever known. One of the most celebrated debuts in recent memory, The Safekeep is an exhilarating tale of twisted desire, histories, and homes, and the legacy of one of the 20th century's greatest tragedies. So, really looking forward to checking this out as well. So, this is a massive pile of books, and I do not believe I will be able to do a Steve pyramid without threatening to upend them and leaving them on the floor, and some of them, particularly the Harmony Silk Factory, getting more damage than they already are. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap up this book haul, so I can go ahead and put them in the show notes and then put them back on the shelf while they await more books to come in and for the end of the month to come, so that I can put all of the books that are coming in onto the fiction, poetry, and drama shelves, because I'm in something of a fiction, poetry, and drama kick right now. So anyway, look forward to another book haul either Thursday or Friday, because I did some shopping with Amazon, because I got a gift card from Amazon for a Christmas present as well. And while half of that order is going to be delivered by the post office, the other half will be delivered by UPS. And when exactly that will arrive and whether or not it arrives without a few headaches remains to be seen. But anyway, BookTube, I will hopefully be back with a new video tomorrow. And if not, then definitely look forward to the book haul when it comes in, and Poetry Thursday on Thursday. And then Friday will be a lot of wrap-up videos. So anyway, BookTube, thank you, have a great afternoon, and stay safe.